Hello and welcome to another Game Nexus video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Kung Fu, released in 1985 on the NES. This is of course a port of the game Kung Fu Master, which was released in the arcade a year earlier. Of course, just like the NES version, in Japan this was known as Spartan X, but of course in America this was just known as Kung Fu. And the mode I'm actually playing right now is Mode A, which is the easier version of it. You can also play Mode B, which is a little bit closer to the arcade's difficulty, especially on floor 2, when you actually get to those like falling things. Like, I think 2 of them will take your life out, just like in the arcade version, if you recall my video a while back. One thing that I find a bit weird in the Mode A is it seems like what kind of enemies appear on floor 1 at least seems kind of random. I've actually gone through floor 1 and never gotten to like one knife thrower at all in some playthroughs, which is kind of weird. And in that one, as you could see, I had 2 of them. But yeah, it just seems kind of weird that it's random generated when it comes to that. But since this was a early NES game, this is one of the black box games, which a lot of the black box games, as compared to the later games, have fairly simplistic graphics and a little bit more simplistic of gameplay. I'd have to say one of the most complex ones has to be Super Mario Brothers, of course, but that's because Nintendo is just such a great maker of video games. But I would imagine back in the day when they first started making these games, they really didn't know the power of the NES, because if you compare to like a game like this from 1985 to a game that was released at the end of the system's lifespan, you'll notice that like the games released toward the end of the system lifespan almost look kind of like 16-bit-ish in their graphic style. Whereas some of these earlier games can look a bit blocky, but I do have to admit, considering the hardware that it ran on the arcade was a little bit more powerful than the home console here, it actually is pretty cool that they got this game to look as good as they did. The only thing I definitely have to say is I like the sounds that Thomas makes in the home version a bit better than the arcade. I thought he was a little bit too loud in the arcade version. And the thing is, since I actually played this version first when I was young, it kind of has that whole nostalgia thing that when I hear him do like his hi-yas and everything, it's just one of those things that like it, you know, brings back the memories. Now this gameplay that you're seeing here, this actually took me a little while to do because I had to kind of figure out the ins and outs, especially of the bosses. Now whenever you hear that like little ding-dong noise, that basically is when the when you get 50,000 points, you get an extra life. Now that boss is one of those bosses where when he's doing his moves, he punches and kicks, but it's kind of random what he'll throw. So usually what I end up doing is getting real close to him and doing a lot of crouch kicks, and hopefully he dies, which happened there. And now, especially in this level, the boss was one of those bosses that I honestly couldn't beat without finding a strategy online. And this part, no matter how many times I do it, is always a little bit annoying. Sure, hitting these little weird bugs isn't too bad, but sometimes they just seem to totally destroy you, no matter what you do. And now when I first saw these little guys, I thought they were children, and then I read somewhere that are actually supposed to be some sort of midget acrobats or something. And now this enemy, if you kick him in the head, he'll just disappear and another version of him will appear. And if you notice there, I actually had beat him, but I died like exactly when I beat him. And that was really annoying. When I played this, I remember I yelled at the TV because it was just one of those annoying moments where I was like, yeah, I finally beat him. I actually had to read an FAQ, because if you kick his head, it doesn't hurt him at all. The enemy life stays exactly as it is right now. And another version of him will just simply appear, and you just keep going and keep going. And the only way you can really kill him is tons of crouch punches. And just hope he doesn't throw a fireball at you like that and kill you. And now the one thing I really can't remember is if I was actually able to beat this when I was younger. I remember being able to get through at least a few of the stages here, but the good thing is that stage 2 and 4 are the only ones with the annoying hazards. So it was one of those things that they weren't really too bad. And if you see me fighting a lot of these enemies and I'm doing a lot of the crouch punches, it's because I do that because you score more points and it gets you closer to your goal when you punch the enemies instead of kicking them. And of course, crouch punching, because those little midget guys, they're actually smaller, so it's just easier to crouch punch everybody and you don't have to worry if you're going to hit them or not. So that's why I just end up doing that a lot in this game. And now we're going to move on to the final floor here. And of course he teases you because he has your girlfriend. And this stage is when you finally see the boss, Mr. X. He's the guy who has your girlfriend Sylvia kidnapped. Now the good thing about this is only in like stage 2 and 4 do you have the weird like falling hazards, because I can honestly tell you, in my opinion, those are just very annoying. And of course after this playthrough I will have a little bit of a video of mode B. I only actually get to floor 3 and I die a few times, but just to show you how much harder it is. Now that was a very weird graphical glitch, and now this is not emulation, this is actually my real console. Now this is Mr. X, this very weird skinny guy, and one of the FAQs I actually had read said to crouch punch him, but as you'll see at the end of this playthrough here, I learned that you actually should crouch kick him, and it looks like he kind of glitches, and then you can just easily beat him, which is kind of weird. It's kind of like Dark Link and Zelda 2 The Adventure Link, which the first time I actually beat Zelda 2 The Adventure Link, I can tell you that I legitimately beat Dark Link. I don't recall how I did it. It was just one of those things like, you know, you have your save and then you keep playing it and then eventually you do it. But like every time after I heard about that glitch where you just crouch in the corner and keep stabbing and you'll eventually just beat him, I tend to just do that usually. Yeah, see, he kind of glitches if you notice. And that will defeat Mr. X pretty easily. And then for some reason you get 10,000 points. I have no idea why. And then finally you save Sylvia. And of course this is congratulating you that you got to the end of the game. But with Silly, it's like, oh, their happiness doesn't continue long. What would happen here is the game would start all over again and you would have to play it all over again. And what happens is that little dragon thing, if you notice when the guy ran up, the little dragon thing actually had a 1. Apparently if you beat the game 50 times in a row, you get some sort of special ending or something. If I can actually find footage of that, I actually might just tack it in on the end. But from what I read in one of the FAQs, it's one of those things that's kind of not worth it, especially in this digital age when people record everything and put it on YouTube, and you could just like search Kung Fu real ending, and then you can just see it. But I couldn't imagine it being anything all that great. But you'll notice already, like, I'm not all that far into this play, and there's just been a lot of different enemies, and the enemies are a bit faster as well. Although that boss on floor 1 is still pretty easy. So, not too bad at all. I still say of all the bosses that gives me the most trouble, it has to be that tall African American man on floor 3, because the way he throws his punches and kicks, it just seems to be so unpredictable compared to the other bosses that I always tend to get beaten by him, sometimes even in the easier difficulty. Yeah. He just is in my opinion, the toughest, and once I found out that like kind of trick to beat Mr. X, yeah, he's not too bad. And the Hunchback guy isn't all that bad because all you really have to do is get really close to him and do a lot of crouch punches, and he's not that bad at all either. And that's another thing that I know you can do, but a lot of times it's just easier to avoid these things. But if you kick the little pods before they hit the ground, they will actually be destroyed, which is a neat little thing. But like, you can jump over the snakes and just dodge the dragon's fire, and it's not a big deal. And I know I probably mentioned this in like numerous NES gameplay videos, but the NES graphics are just one of those graphics that a lot of people will look at them and say they're primitive, but it might be the nostalgia, or it might just be that it's something I grew up with, but I still look at them today and I'm like, these are actually some pretty good graphics, and I never minded them. Another one I always see a lot of people have problems with are PlayStation graphics, whereas I have the same thing with that, the bit of nostalgia where it was like the first time you saw a 3D video game, and I look at a lot of these older games with a grain of salt, and I don't judge them as harshly as some people may. And now, since I actually used up all my lives in Floor 2, you're just gonna see me try Floor 1 once and then die, of course. But the thing I hate the most about those little midget guys is on occasion they'll do this crazy flipping thing, and a lot of times no matter what I do, I can't actually avoid that. And especially on this higher difficulty, and if they walk a bit, they will do that a lot more often. Oh, I didn't even remember that. I actually got the extra life on this level, so you're going to see me actually try this twice. And one thing that's kind of funny is a lot of the sounds in this game, to me at least, maybe since it was, well, it was only published by Nintendo, it wasn't actually ported by them, but a lot of the sounds in this remind me of Zelda 2, like when your character gets hurt, and of course the boomerang guy. Both of those sounds actually sound exactly like Zelda 2 to me. Now when I really think about it, he kind of looks like Charles Barkley. I kept thinking like, okay, what guy does this guy look like? But now that I think about it, seeing the footage back again, he kind of looks like Charles Barkley. Like a cartoon version of Charles Barkley. Like Charles Barkley is mad at you and he doesn't want you getting at the top of this building. I doubt there actually ever was a game where Charles Barkley was a boss, but I guess this is going to be the closest thing that you'll actually have, is some guy that kind of looks like him. In my opinion, at least. You might have a different opinion and think he looks like somebody else. But yeah, as far as ports of arcade games go for NES, Kung Fu is an excellent port. Of course, the arcade version, as I mentioned earlier, was Kung Fu Master. I'm not sure why they dropped the Master, but yeah, excellent game, very highly recommended. And I shall see you later in another video. Bye.